Good evening and welcome to the Monday, September 14th meeting of the Sacramento Regional Transit Board of Directors. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Director Budge?
Here.
Director Harris?
Here.
Director Howell?
Here.
Director Hume?
Here.
Director Cerna?
Here.
Vice Chair Miller?
Here.
Chair Hansen?
Here, Madam Clerk. Director Hume, would you like to lead us in the pledge today?
Sure. Address a flag if you know what one is.
Cindy's going to put one up if you just give her 1 second.
Thank
There
you.
we go. All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice job, Director Hume. All right,
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, first item,
First, I'd like to read the statement, Chair Hansen.
please.
This meeting of the Sacramento Regional Transit District will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse. Today's meeting will air on Wednesday, September 16th at 9 a.m. and Friday, September 18th at 6 p.m. on Channel 14 and will be webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. It is also closed caption. So with that, we'll go on to the consent calendar, items 2.1 through 2.13. We have a revised resolution for item 2.13, and I have comments on items 2.4, 2.11, and 2.13.
Before you read the comments, I'd ask the board if there are any items which people would like to have removed for separate vote and consideration.
Yeah, Chair, I would like to have 2.12 pulled for separate vote and consideration.
Okay.
If I'd like to have on the consent calendar 2.5, because I have a conflict. Mark Thomas is a client. And
So we'll note you as recusing on that item. And is there another item?
hang on, I'm just double checking. I'm looking for the HDR item.
That's item 7.3.
3 under
Okay,
new
so it's-
business.
All right, so it's not in consent. Okay.
No.
Other than that, I'll move consent.
Okay. I think because you recused on that one, I don't believe you can.
I can move the rest of it. That one needs to be separate.
It doesn't need to be separate. We just record you as a recusal, but I'd like a motion from someone else on the consent calendar.
I'll move the consent calendar. This is Hume.
Okay, thank you, Director Hume. I saw Director Budge say second, but she's muted.
So,
Okay,
so noted.
okay. And Madam Clerk, why don't you do the public comment, and we'll just note that on the item, Director Howell is recused, the HGR item in consent.
Item 2.5, and we'll take
That's right.
2.12 separately.
That's right.
Okay, so the first public comment is on item 2.4, and that's approving SAC-RT's social media policy. And the public comment is by Helen O'Connell, and she says that the media policy should be accessible to all people, deaf, blind, physically and mentally disabled, so everyone can use it. And that is the only comment on 2.4. Comment on 2.11 is adopting a categorical exemption for the Watt I-80 Transit Center improvements. And the comment is from Mike Birnbaum. As the issue states, this is an important capital improvement that focuses on service improvements by SAC-RT and transit operators throughout the SACOG region. While I favor the categorical exemption, that is at the crux of this issue paper. I'm wondering from staff and the members in attendance if anyone knows about any upcoming planned service disruptions causing folks to switch to buses when they are used to taking trains. Would anyone be available this Monday evening to address this concern? In closing, sorry, I was muting someone. Lost my place. In closing, the categorical exemption makes sense in moving the project forward, and so I will be honored to make an intent motion to adopt item 2.11 on tonight's agenda. Thank you. Then on item 2.13, that is the Student Ridership Initiative Transit Pass Modification. The public comment is from Helen O'Connell. Student Ridership Transit Pass Modification should have as few changes as possible to make sure the changes are fair to all students. And those are the public comments on the consent calendar.
Do any board members have comments? Otherwise, we'll take the roll. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Okay, this will be for items 2.1 through 2.13, excluding item 2.12, noting a recused on item 2.5 for Director Howell. Director Budge.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Aye.
Director Howell for everything except 2.5.
Yes.
Director Hume.
Aye.
Director Jennings.
Aye.
Director Kennedy.
Aye.
Director Natoli.
Aye.
Director Chenier.
Aye.
Director Cerna.
Aye.
Vice Chair Miller.
Aye.
Chair Hansen.
Aye.
With it, we have a quorum on all items of 100 votes, except for item 2.5. And I've lost my tally sheet. Sorry. I believe it's 90 votes, but it does pass. Okay,
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item.
next item.
Let's do 2.12 and then we'll do public comment.
Okay, item 2.12 is resolution approving the job description for the position general counsel and changing the reporting structure as authorized under the California Public Utilities Code 102160. And if you have any questions, Olga Sanchez Ochoa is here to answer them.
Olga, would you like to give any brief comments?
Sure. So the item before you would result in the adoption of a new job description for the general counsel position, which is very similar to the job description for the general counsel position at BART, AC Transit, and VTA. And under that structure, the general counsel would report directly to the board of directors rather than the general manager. And there would be a realignment of attorneys that work for regional transit under the general counsel. And under the Public Utilities Code, under our Enabling Act, the board can have, there's a number of positions that the board can directly appoint as officers to the board, and the general counsel is one of those positions. It also includes the general manager.
Thank you, Olga. I'd just like to thank you as well. I asked Olga to do quite a lot of research before presenting this to us, and she's done very thorough research with the transit agencies, not just in California, but across the country to make sure this reflected best practices and was a very strong modern version of the general counsel. So thank you, Olga. I know Director Harris pulled it from the consent calendar. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this particular item before we turn to the board?
I do not.
Okay. Director Harris?
Yeah, Chair, this surprises me somewhat because it was only about a year and a half ago that we changed the reporting structure of the general counsel for the general counsel to report to the general manager and the board. I would like to know who brought this forward and for what reasons, because I don't believe that as a board that we have deliberated on this item and expressed a need for change to go back more or less to the old system or something quite similar. So perhaps you can enlighten me as to who brought it forward and exactly why, because this is a fairly serious matter. When we discussed changing the reporting structure last time, it was a rather lengthy discussion. So I was surprised to find this on consent.
Director Harris, this is a result of a report out from a closed session. And I don't think I'm at liberty to say more than that, but the board did direct that this reporting change happen, and it is before the board under those terms. So I don't know if that's the end of the comments, but I'd entertain a motion.
I will move approval of consent calendar item 2.12.
Thank you, Director Budge. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, this is the Supervisor Natoli. I wanted to just ask a question. It
Sure.
seems to me, I think, your answer was appropriate, but I guess I would just suggest that if there was, Director Harris obviously said he was surprised by this, but if there was a need for us to, again, this is a matter of on the public agenda for taking action, but I guess if there was any question, I guess it might be appropriate that we, and again, I assume we could do it in a closed session as to why, if that were of concern. So I just wanted to say that because I think you were clear in your statement, but if there was confusion about that, I guess under the closed session we could have that conversation.
That's right. And I'm happy to follow up with Director Harris and on the item as well.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, perhaps something slipped my attention or I missed a piece in closed session, but I don't recall that conversation. So I would be gratified if we could take this back to a closed session item and make a decision.
Well, I think that we can't necessarily talk about that here, but unless there's a motion to continue the item, I would rather just prefer that we adopt the item. We do have a closed session tonight where we can discuss next steps, but I would recommend, to the extent that we can, just to move on and adopt the item.
Well,
Then we've already lost the opportunity to discuss it. How much Jeff?
I'd like to offer a substitute motion that we lay this aside for now and talk about it in closed session and then bring it back once we've had the discussion. Your lips are moving, but your microphone is off.
Thank you, Chair Harris.
No, I was just going to change my motion to continue the item
Okay.
for a couple weeks, but I'm not sure we can discuss it tonight in closed session simply because it's not on the closed session agenda. So we'd have to go.
It is, Olga, you're muted. Do you want to?
Yeah, it is on closed session for discussion for tonight.
It is.
Oh, you're right. You put it under a point of somebody or other. Okay. All right. So I'll just move that we continue this to the next meeting, whatever that date might be.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Anyone else?
Just for clarification, the motion is to continue the item to a date uncertain.
No, it's to a date certain, Pat, but we'll have to insert the date of our next meeting.
We don't, at this point, it sounds like the staff are going to cancel the second meeting in September, so it would be the first meeting in October for this to come back.
Chair Hansen, there is no first meeting in October. There's only one meeting, and that's October 26th.
Okay, October 26th then.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Anyone else before we call the roll on it? All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. And this is for the substitute motion. To move this item to the next meeting, which is October 26th, Director Budge,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Aye.
Director Howell,
Yes.
Director Hume,
Aye.
Director Jennings,
Aye.
Director Kennedy,
Aye.
Director Napoli,
Aye.
Director Chenier,
Aye.
Director Cerna,
Aye.
Vice Chair Miller,
Aye.
Chair Hansen.
Aye.
Motion passes at 100 votes. This item will be brought back to October 26th. All right. If you're ready for the next item, it's public addresses the board on matters not on the agenda.
Please proceed, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. I have 2 comments. First is from Mike Birnbaum. I wanted to address the meeting structure, especially in the wake of the pandemic. The governor wants public meetings closed to the public until further notice. Local and regional public agencies had to adopt and get creative. In the Sacramento County-wide area, many of us have observed that the county and cities within have instituted a call-in number allowing for constituents to maintain communication with their elected officials and the staff members of the governing body itself. Why has that not been implemented yet at SAC-RT? Why can't riders and other constituents call in and speak directly with the members and staff on matters on and off the agenda they are passionate about? Would it be out of line for me to request a report back on this topic and perhaps see if open meetings can occur again as long as mask wearing requirements is in place without exemptions to said proposed public meeting policy? Thank you for looking into this important inquiry. The second comment is from Jeffrey Tartagia. I'm sending last MAC agenda because this public meeting is not available to public. Will board explain what is employee Doug Cook status? Rumors run rampant. Would like to know what and when public disclosure of what is going on in regional transit. I am M.A.D, but I will ask you to ask me. I watch you with less than 10 on YouTube this year, but I will be on other Zoom calls tonight. I am tired of so little time for public. And he's attached the MAC agenda from September 5. And those are the 2 public comments that I have.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Having no other comments, let's proceed to the next item, please.
Certainly. New business, item 7.1, chair appointment of board members to an ad hoc committee to provide input and recommendations for SAC-RT's administrative campus and other related facilities.
I wanted to have this agenda item because there's been a long-running discussion between the board, the staff, and other partners about the long-term status of the headquarters, given its continuing decline in infrastructure and the working conditions recently. Previously we've had to do emergency repairs on the facilities. So I'd like to see what board members are interested in serving on a committee. I do know that Director Budge has expressed interest, Director Kennedy has expressed interest, and I would like myself and the vice chair to serve on the committee as well. I don't know if there's anyone. I think 5 is probably the max given quorum. Director Chenier.
Yeah, thank you. So I'd be interested in this. I went through this process back in the days of the school board when we moved from the quote Taj Mahal unquote down to the Cerna Center, and I think have some experience and can be a value add to this committee. I'd be very interested in doing that.
Yeah. And Director Jennings, who I know hasn't joined us, was also somewhat interested, but or Director Jennings, I do see you're here, but on mute.
I would have an interest in serving for the same reasons as
Director Chenier, since we went through that period of time together. So I can serve as a substitute. I can serve as one of the small committee members.
Okay. Anyone else? Is there any objection to, and I can't, I'm not sure on the quorum issue, so maybe Olga or Cindy would like to tell us, but I'm happy to appoint those who've expressed interest. The mission will be to work with staff, report back a recommendation to the board to lay out a plan for next steps. So I anticipate 2 to 3 meetings at the most, and the meeting should be no longer than an hour.
So Chair Hansen, you've listed 6 members of the board, so that is a quorum.
Is there a problem having a quorum as long as it's posted for Brown Act purposes? I would think we'd want this to be a very transparent process.
Yeah, no, you can have a quorum. We would just have to comply with the Brown Act.
Yeah.
I think at this point, just to facilitate the conversation, I would ask that one person step away. And it sounds like, Rick, you might be the one who is interested, maybe as a tweener.
Again, I'd be more than happy to serve as a substitute. If any of the other 5 members were not available, I would be willing to step in and serve.
Okay. So why don't we do this? Why don't we appoint the chair, the vice chair, Director Kennedy, Director Budge, and Director Chenier at the chair's prerogative today. And we can evolve that if needed. And if we bring back items, it'll be to the full board for consideration rather than having the board for that purpose. I don't think we need a motion because it's just a chair appointment.
That is correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Supervisor Natoli, Director Natoli.
Yeah, thanks. I think it would be helpful by way of background as the ad hoc committee does this work. I know that some years ago, and again, I don't know if it's no longer, has the currency to it, but there was a good deal of work done by RT staff, both facility assessment, but also looking at some of the options. Some of those options obviously may have changed, and markets may have changed, and obviously RT has advanced this work and serving our customers. But I would say that might be helpful by way of background if and when something comes to the board as to what had been done previously, because there was quite a bit of work done around, the current campus, where various divisions are spread to, and various other assets that are held by RT and where people report to work. So I guess I would just suggest that might be useful background for those, who, are going to serve on the committee, but also the board at the point where you have anything before us for consideration. So I just would
absolutely. And I know the staff have already reviewed some of that and will be prepared to update it. When we come back in October, I believe we'll have an item before us to look at the long-term strategic plan for RT for the board to give comments. And these are some of the things that will be on the table for debate and discussion at that board meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Is there any public comment, Madam Clerk?
There is not.
All right, next item.
Next item is item 7.2, chair appointment of a 2x2 ad hoc committee with the City of Elk Grove to discuss the annexation of the City of Elk Grove to the Sacramento Regional Transit District. And I do have public comment on that item.
Please proceed.
Thank you. From Mike Birnbaum. I'm loving that this item is on the agenda. It would honorably make a motion to approve, subject to concurrence of the motion by the Elk Grove City Council. There are at least one, if not some, potential outstanding matters that I would appreciate tonight as direction to staff and appointed committee members to discuss, such as routing number. SAC-RT uses triple-digit numbers for express routes and mostly double-digit numbers for local bus routes. E-Tran is just the opposite. Can this be a term that could be agreed to be changed and lead to future annexation? Staffing is also a concern. Could all city transit staff be grandfathered their position as a SAC-RT staff member without having to go through the complete application and interview process? This makes life and precious time easier on everybody involved, from contracting to annexation. Lastly, could SAC-RT do a mini version of SAC-RT Forward for Folsom and Elk Grove and be a similar process to the overall SAC-RT Forward project? This would absolutely require in-person involvement, and now even to the point of requiring masks to be worn by all.
Okay. I don't know if staff wants to give a quick update. Negotiations continue with Elk Grove. Maybe Henry or Laura would like to say something related to this. Otherwise, I did talk to Director Hume earlier, and I'm happy to appoint the chair and vice chair to a 2x2 in the city of Elk Grove to work with them to close out the discussions that have been going on at the staff level, hopefully in the near term.
Actually, Steve, I'd like to sit on that, and the reason is because we're the most recent annexation. So I think I can help out where some of the pitfalls are and where they didn't exist.
At this point, Director Howell, I think it's prudent to appoint the chair and vice chair just for the sake of continuing some of the work we've been doing with the staff behind the scenes. But I'd welcome that input from you. I'm sure Director Miller would, Vice Chair Miller, as we work through this. I'm conscious that Director Hume may want to speak to this, or staff, but I think there's been a very productive relationship. The service continues to go well, and I would turn it over to others, but on that particular point, I would appoint the chair and vice chair for this purpose.
Yeah, I would just echo what you said, Chair, that Carrie, I'd be interested in any comments that you have. If the chair and vice chair are wanting to represent RTI, will obviously be on the Elk Grove side of things. One of my colleagues from the council, probably either Darren Swin or Stephanie Wynn, would comprise the other part of the 2x2. And I'll just say that to this point, staff has had a very productive relationship in working out, most of the details, and we're down to just kind of the fine tip points that I think to have policymakers involved might fast track the process.
Okay, and I'm happy to help you with that, Pat. Again, knowing what things went smoothly with our annexation and what types of problems were anticipated that didn't materialize. That there's some stupid stuff that I've spoken to Henry about that did turn into problems that we didn't expect. So,
well, maybe in that case, we could appoint you as an alternate, Director Howell, if you feel strongly about it.
Yeah,
that
I do.
Keep you in the loop. Okay, I'm happy to appoint you as an alternate if the chair, vice chair, are able to make a meeting.
Okay.
Any other comments from staff or board? No. Okay. Thank you. So that will be the appointment, the chair and vice chair, and Director Howell is an alternate.
So noted.
All right. Madam Clerk, next item.
Item 7.3, Downtown Riverfront Streetcar Project Update. There are 4 resolutions in front of you. First one is conditionally approving reimbursement agreement for the redesign of the Downtown Riverfront Streetcar Project and Small Starts Grant Update submission with the Riverfront Joint Powers Authority. The second resolution is conditionally approving the third amendment to the contract for Downtown Riverfront Streetcar Design Services with HDR. The third resolution is conditionally approving the first amendment to the contract for environmental support services for Downtown Riverfront Streetcar Project with AECOM. And the fourth resolution is conditionally approving termination of the subrecipient and interagency agreement, authorized project sponsorship and ownership to transfer to SAC-RT, and directs the general manager CEO to negotiate replacement agreements with the cities prior to the dissolution of the authority. And Laura Ham is here to present.
Mr. Chair, before we go any further.
One second, Director Harris, 1 second. Madam Clerk, I'd also note for the record that Director Howell had recused herself and it appears to have virtually stepped away from the dais in keeping with those rules. Mr. Harris, I'd rather have the staff presentation first, and then we'll go to the board, if you don't mind waiting.
Well, I
Mr. Chair.
would appreciate having a comment before we go there. Frankly,
I would, Mr. Harris, I would love to have the staff present. I know that we have some public comment, and then we can have the board debate.
Mr. Chair, this is not a debate. This is a question of procedure.
Okay, Director Budge.
The staff's first request is that we reconsider this item. That needs to be a motion. We need to actually decide to reconsider the item.
I would leave it to our council to advise us on whether we need a motion to reconsider. I don't believe we do, but I'll defer to Miss Ochoa Sanchez Ochoa.
Director Budge is correct. Generally, there is a motion to reconsider when an item is brought back for reconsideration. And that is how it's couched. So generally, that is how most boards, under the Roberts Rules of Order, how they reconsider an item.
And it's actually this first staff's request. It says so in the report, in the third line down. Staff requests that the board reconsider.
And I have another comment on the procedural question.
Director Howell, I believe that you cannot participate at all in this conversation, given the conflict.
Can I please finish what I was saying, Steve?
I don't believe, based on the advice from council.
It's a procedural question, Steve.
But it's related to the item, and I don't believe
it's a procedural question, Steve. And my recusal at the last meeting was only on the contract extension, the HDR. That's a separate item within this entire document. That's the only thing I recused on.
But I believe, and I'll turn it over to the council again.
Yeah, generally, it's even though there's 4 resolutions, it's one entire package, and each action is dependent on the other. So generally, the rule is that if there is a conflict, the board member should step away and recuse themselves from the entire package.
I disagree.
That is the law that we abide by generally, that if you can't just vote against one piece of it, you have to step away. That is the advice from our council, and in keeping with what I know from our dealings at the city. So I would like to have the staff.
I have a question, Steve, for
Olga. Let's hold on.
If that was disputed, what would that mean to RT?
If it was disputed, you mean if somebody said you violated the Brown Act or the Roberts Rules of Order, and it would require us to, it would void whatever action was taken, and it would have to come back in order for it to be cured. So let's say it passed today and somebody disputed it, then it would all be thrown out if we were wrong.
Does that answer your question, Director Harris?
It does, but it doesn't satisfy me.
I'm not sure that you can be satisfied on this particular item.
Well, not on the appropriate nature of it. Not.
So now, please, let's have the staff presentation, and hopefully we'll get through this and come out the other side on a decision one way or the other.
Do we need a vote to take up the item?
It was news to me that we need a vote to take up the item. I'm happy to do that if that will make people feel better. I think from a procedural standpoint, the revote motion, if we have a motion to approve the item with reconsideration being granted as part of it, I think that would satisfy it as well.
As I understand Robert's Rules of Order, I'm not suggesting that necessarily governs here, but only someone who voted in the affirmative can make the motion to reconsider.
Yeah, and I wouldn't do that.
I'll make that motion. This is Director Cerna.
All right, we have a motion, and is it simply on reconsideration, or is it on approving the item as well as reconsideration?
No.
At this point, it's reconsideration.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right. So before we have the staff report, Madam Clerk, let's call the roll on reconsideration.
Okay. Director Budge?
No.
Director Harris?
No.
Director Howell? Oh, recusing herself. Director Hume? Director Hume?
Sorry, I couldn't get off mute. No.
Director Jennings?
Yes. Director Jennings says yes.
Thank you. Director Kennedy?
No.
Director Natoli?
Aye.
Director Chenier?
Yes for reconsideration.
Director Cerna?
Aye.
Vice Chair Miller?
Yes.
Chair Hansen?
Aye.
And the vote calculation is? Adam's going to show it to us. The motion carries at 59 votes, so we will be reconsidering the item.
All right. Let's have our staff presentation and then we'll take the public comment and then we'll have the board debate.
Good evening, Chair Hansen and directors. We are before you tonight to reintroduce the streetcar project in response to specific feedback from the August 24th board meeting. The modifications to the recommended actions will reduce the risk to SAC-RT, and with continued support from Congresswoman Doris Matsui and the mayors of Sacramento and West Sacramento for the project, staff respectfully requests that the board reconsider the modified recommendations as described in the staff report. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Laura.
The actions will stipulate the receipt of external funding to conduct additional work on the project and will specifically hold SAC-RT harmless for any project development, construction, or operational cost overruns. If the board approves these actions, it will also require that the city of Sacramento enter into an agreement to join the district through annexation or under a contract arrangement by December 31st, 2020, and fully implement the agreement prior to the award of the Small Starts Grant Agreement. That agreement would address proportionate shares of operating costs for the project. Additionally, it will be beneficial to the project to have these issues addressed prior to the project readiness review that will be required as part of the FTA process. Regarding the reimbursement agreement, when the currently available $2.3 million is expended, a subsequent amendment or a new agreement between the cities and SAC-RT will be necessary to provide the $151,000 shortfall in the current agreement, plus the additionally estimated $560,000 required to reach a grant agreement. As written, work on the project would be on pause until action is taken by both cities and the fully required amount is identified, either through city funds or other grants. The action would also conditionally approve execution of design and environmental support services contracts, contingent on the reimbursement agreements being executed and fully funded. Since your last meeting, staff has been advised by FTA that we are able to submit a request for project re-rating at any time due to the fact that we are not requesting an additional appropriation, nor is this a new project. So that's somewhat different than what we presented to you at the last meeting regarding the August 28th deadline. I want to clarify that point. However, based on the draft project schedule, actions will likely be required to request an extension of the 2017 $50 million federal appropriation that expires in September 2021. The additional work required for project development and a federal Small Starts Grant award will include an updated 20-year ridership forecast. With the reduction from 20 to 3 stops roughly, we expect ridership to be much lower than the 3,400 daily boardings anticipated on the original streetcar project. However, the forecast will fully evaluate projected development in the project catchment area, including West Sacramento and downtown Sacramento, incremental ridership from special generators like Sutter Health Park, Old Sacramento, and Golden One Center. The last recommended action would allow project ownership to transition to SAC-RT when the JPA is dissolved or when replacement reimbursement agreements are implemented. Thank you for your reconsideration of the items before you tonight. That concludes my brief presentation. Please let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Laura. I know that this was heavily debated last time we had it before us. The vote was just short of passage. I think that the item before you, board members, took feedback from the board in order to make substantial changes to the item, including the ones that Laura mentioned. To the extent today that we debate this item, I hope that we can do it thoughtfully and to hopefully not tread too much ground that we had tread before. But for the sake of it, I do think that this agreement is better than what we had before the board on August 24th, and it's because of the comments from the board. I also think that it is an important thing that we continue to work with our partners across the river in West Sacramento. Many of you represent cities that became cities in the last 20 to 30 years. And as they've expressed it, and they along with others have asked us to reconsider this, want to have the same opportunity that an Elk Grove had, a Rancho Cordova, a Folsom, a Citrus Heights. And in the end, what we do today will determine the future of that relationship. I think it'll be productive regardless. We have had very good relationships with YOLO Bus on the project to connect UC Davis and their Davis campus with Sacramento, the connector, which is an electric bus service. We've worked collaboratively with YOLO Bus as well on the airport service. And West Sacramento, as a member of YOLO Bus, would continue to work very well with them if they partially annexed in, like had been done prior for some jurisdictions, or operated on a contract like we do right now with Elk Grove. And in the end, I hope that we keep this to the issues. I know that there are strong feelings, but however the vote goes, I hope at the end of it, the board continues to remain dedicated to transit-rich service across the region. And it's part of why I requested that the staff bring back a workshop to talk about the future expansion projects, the modernization projects, and the other service enhancements that we hope to continue forward with, even in light of the new Measure A being withdrawn from the ballot, taking advantage of state and federal funds to be able to move our interests as an organization forward. So with that, I will make a motion that we approve the staff recommendation, the 4 items, and we'll start the debate.
Second.
Unless there's.
This is Director Cerna.
Thank you, Director Cerna.
Mr. Chair, are you going to take public comment, or can I speak?
I'll take public comment. Thank you. And then we'll turn it directly over to you, Director Harris.
Thank you.
I have 11 public comments. The first one is from Austin Allen. It's addressed to Director Budge. I am one of your constituents in Rancho Cordova, White Rock neighborhood. I'm writing to encourage support of the project to extend light rail over the Tower Bridge. Providing better transit during economic recession is critical to providing opportunities for those who live further away to work in more places. Connecting West Sacramento by light rail to Rancho Cordova is to our benefit to allow workers and commuters better connections without a car. We cannot afford to lose $50 million in federal funding we have for this project. Projects like this also encourage economic stimulus by employing people who will design and construct this project. Just 2 days after you voted no to this extension, the Sacramento Mayor's Commission on Climate Change was approved and requires a 30% transit transportation mode split by 2030. If we are to achieve these goals to reduce our dependence on cars and begin to solve our climate emergency, we need to expand light rail. I live in Rancho Cordova, but I would use this extension to visit friends in West Sacramento. I would use this extension to go to Riverfront baseball games. Please vote yes tonight. The second comment is from Helen O'Connell. The board voted the streetcar down last meeting. Why is it on again? Thank you for hearing my concerns, Helen O'Connell. The next comment is from Dennis Newfield. Dear board members, the revote of this matter rejected August 24th is untimely because of lacking information needed to make a reasoned decision. The missing information. 1, a revised travel forecast has not been completed. How can you consider passing this agenda item without reviewing an expert opinion of anticipated ridership? 2, an updated land use economic development plan is also needed because of the reduced scope, a new alignment with just 3 stations, not 21 stations. This is a huge change, severely impacting identification of sites for future economic impetus. Number 3, an updated financial plan needs completion. A sharp pencil analysis of fares, labor costs, updated bids for streetcars, etc. must be in front of you before any yes vote can be affirmed. 4, West Sacramento annexation to RT is a wild card political issue that, 2, needs approval from West Sacramento politicians before considering a yes vote. The next comment is from Sabrina Lockhart. It's disappointing that this failed idea is being resurrected for a desperate last-minute vote. Cost estimates continue to balloon for the streetcar project, and with our pandemic-battered economy, we can mortgage $150 million when local vital services are at risk. The rail car is simply a monument for vainglorious politicians who conveniently live and work between the streetcar's beginning and end. The pandemic is likely to change the future of how people work. Remote work may become more commonplace, further eliminating the need for this costly project. Please vote no on agenda item 7.3. The next one is from Pat Flint. I urge you to vote no on these items. Taxpayers of West Sacramento did approve this project many years ago now. It has become a financial nightmare. It was linked to flood protection on the ballot that was so badly needed in our city. It was also proposed to lessen the traffic flow and greenhouse gas emissions in our community. It does neither. In times when our economy is once again in jeopardy, our roads are becoming dangerous, sustainable, walkable communities are being built. This is no longer an affordable, viable project for the taxpayers of West Sacramento. We as a community simply cannot afford to absorb the cost of this project when it does not solve our current needs and public safety issues. The next comment is from Danny Langford. As a longtime West Sacramento resident, I respectfully request you do not approve this project. I know that many other residents are opposed to the streetcar project, especially during this time of economic uncertainty between COVID and the wildfires, to just name a few financial strains to our unknown fiscal issues. Most of us voted for the measure it was attached to because of flood protection and not the streetcar. Now, with it being a quarter mile long on our side of the river, with us taking the extra financial responsibility, it makes no sense to move forward on a project that costs have increased so far over budget and now is even unknown, with taking on the added unknown maintenance costs and overruns. In all honesty, it is a huge expense to both cities, especially when there are so many rails available in Sacramento, including Amtrak, that already connects commuters to Davis. The next comment is from Carl Strauss. Let's be honest about the streetcar. We all know it's a bad project. Your staff has always known it. Staff at the cities have known it for some time. Even SACOG knows it now. FTA knows it, of course. We all know the elephant in the room. No one wants to disappoint Congresswoman Matsui, who got the $50 million for it. No one has the guts to say, we all know the streetcar craze is over, that Sacramento would be the last city in the country to get on board with the fad, which actually died several years ago. We've all seen the similarly mistaken streetcar projects fail in other cities. We know that no one believes in this. It is a 1.5 mile spur to a minor league ballpark with a huge parking lot. Not a single technical person likes it. Ask. They might whisper off the record. What resident cares about it? What actual rider asks about it? Does any business owner care about it other than Mark Friedman? We all know about the embarrassing Green Line spur to Township 9. We saw how the staff and consultants will suppress all common sense and justify even the most inane project if they are instructed to. The B may look the other way, but we all see it. Does this town really need a second boondoggy train to nowhere? Next comment is from Stephen Barassa. Last RT board meeting was stunning to see, watching 50 million federal tax dollars being tossed around like a political football to please our state senator. When the FTA funds were originally approved, the scope of the project was much greater. And still, the voters overwhelmingly rejected that project in 2015. Fast forward today with a miniative line to nowhere. Is there a possibility of an extension to Davis? This will never happen. The causeway prevents the transit-oriented development necessary to justify the billion-dollar expense. The Capitol Quarter makes it redundant. The Capitol Causeway makes it necessary. In this current economic downturn, the use of transit funds is vitally important. RT faces urgent needs like light rail modernization and electrifying and expanding the bus fleet. The goal is increased mobility, not political pandering or giving sweeteners to developers. Please vote no. The next comment is from Louise Bedsworth. And she's attached a letter from the California Strategic Growth Council addressing the recent SAC-RT board decision regarding West Sacramento and light rail extension. It says, please let me know if you have any questions. And the letter is much longer than 250 words. Also attached is a letter that was sent from Mr. Lee to Ms. Bedsworth. The next comment is from Martha Hierro. I am writing regarding the modified proposal which SAC-RT will be taking up tonight for the streetcar project. I am still in opposition to this project moving forward, and the ongoing revisions in contrast to the economic vista are why I still don't feel this is a good deal for West Sac taxpayers. I have also heard from many residents who were supportive of my decision to vote no on this item when it was taken up on the August 19 agenda item 10. The original revision scaling back the project from 21 stops to 4.4 miles of fixed track to 1.5 miles terminating at Sutter Health Park, not City Hall, is most notable on our side of the river, but the financial burden on the community remains disproportionate. The latest revisions use language that would render SAC-RT harmless in the event of cost overruns or increases related to future operating cost. There is also language further reducing Sacramento's initial share cost by half, but the reduction for West Sacramento remains vague. Termination of the fixed rails at Sacramento Valley Station falls short of the original scope's intention to create an inlet for Midtown residents. The lack of concrete language regarding the specifics on the cost share reductions for West Sacramento and the need for more language protecting taxpayers from future expected operating costs and overruns. This project is a gamble unfitting for the challenges facing our city now and in the future. I am available for any questions, phone number provided. The last comment that I have on this item is from Mayor Steinberg. Honorable board members, the purpose of this comment letter is to fully support the reconsideration and affirmative vote by the Sacramento Regional Transit District Board for the Downtown Riverfront Streetcar Project. The Downtown Riverfront Streetcar Project is an important regional investment that will connect the cities of Sacramento and West Sacramento, Sacramento and Yolo counties, and most importantly, the places where people live to where the destinations where they work and recreated. Every investment in a transit connection reduces congestion and greenhouse gas emissions and spurs economic development. The city of Sacramento has worked for over a decade in partnership with West Sacramento to reach this final scope. The project connects two of the largest infill development sites in the nation and the seventh busiest Amtrak station, and includes an important connection to Sacramento, Old Sacramento waterfront. And throughout this decade, our federal and state representatives have worked diligently to secure $80 million in funding. We have the full support of Congresswoman Matsui in our application to the Federal Transit Administration, and the continued support from the California Strategic Growth Council for the Downtown Street Project as a key link to the Dos Rios Light Rail Station was reaffirmed via letter just today. Thank you to the directors for reconsidering this project. Thank you for keeping us moving on leveraging every dollar of infrastructure investment to supporting the renaissance of our downtown, to creating future construction and RT operations jobs that we desperately need, and for supporting the climate mitigation projects to decarbonize our region and our state. Thank you for your vote to advance the downtown Riverfront streetcar project. And that concludes the comments that I have received.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We did get a letter today from the Strategic Growth Council that went to the board. I don't know if Ms. Ham or Mr. Lee would like to address that, but it wasn't apparent before that our $17.5 million award for the Dos Rios station was predicated on this project as well. So board members, you can read that. I did have a conversation with the executive director of SGC shortly before our board meeting. And if we don't pass this tonight, she would like to engage the organization in how we would like to fulfill our commitments under that grant separately, but I'll turn it back over to Laura if she has anything on that particular item.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just briefly share that the TCC award included the streetcar project as a leverage project. So the Strategic Growth Council did reach out to us last week to emphasize that we would need to identify a replacement project and support for the Dos Rios Station project if the streetcar did not go forward.
And a replacement project in the project area.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Question for staff. So,
go ahead.
Laura, I really didn't understand either her letter, her letter or Henry's response. The term leverage normally has to do with money, but so is the financial award to the streetcar project somehow included in the Dos Rios station? Because neither the original project nor this revised project come anywhere close to the Dos Rios station.
I'm not entirely specific with the exact scoring, or I'm sorry, I'm not entirely familiar with the exact scoring criteria, but what I do understand is that it's related to funding and also the additional benefits to the River District area as far as ridership and probably the reduction in vehicle miles traveled from the total projects.
Director Budge, I did ask that question of Louise when I spoke with her before the board meeting. And she said it was because it was in the project area that we got the extra points and were able to use the streetcar project as leverage from a point standpoint to qualify for the grant.
That just seems so weird since it's not anywhere close.
I agree. And that's why I think it's a prudent question. And I asked that. Unless there are any other technical questions, I did promise Director Harris he would be next.
Thank you, Chair. As you know, I take great umbrage that we're revisiting this topic. Apparently, when this board takes a vote and it's been the negative, it doesn't mean no. Because some persons don't like the outcome, the idea would be to revisit until they get the outcome that they desire. Look, we did debate this last time. We talked about cost overruns, and we could easily have cost overruns on the connector project, as we had massive cost overruns on the original streetcar project. There are no economic development benefits to Sacramento, city of Sacramento, with this project. They're really accrued all to the city of West Sacramento. There has been some discussion about potential ridership on this line, and it would be abysmal, probably not even commensurate with the green, which was an albatross around the neck of this organization for over 10 years. And only now could come into its potential if we could scare up the money to double track the green line to serve the new development in that area. this organization cannot diffuse its efforts and spend inordinate sums of money operating a light rail line that does not promote ridership. As far as climate benefits, running a streetcar doesn't bring climate benefits if you don't get ridership. We could do the same thing with rubber-tired electric vehicles. We could gain all the benefits to the environment and actually move people for a fraction of the cost. If somebody can simply object to a vote of this board and have an item reconsidered, then I ask now publicly that if this is voted in the affirmative tonight, I want to reconsider it at the next board meeting, because I would not have been satisfied and would like to argue it again. This staff report is full of disingenuous remarks. First, we did not provide feedback to staff. We took a vote on this project and made a decision. And decisions of a board should not be subject to reconsideration just because somebody didn't like the outcome. It actually denigrates the validity of this board and the integrity of the organization. And frankly, I think that this is absolutely wrong. This is also predicated upon future actions of both cities coming up with money to promote the connector project. And quite frankly, the city of Sacramento doesn't have the money to put into this project. The staff report also talks about the possibility of passing a future STA measure. Well, you don't build a streetcar line predicated upon possible future decisions. There are so many holes in these arguments. I could go on and on. I don't want to, offend my colleagues here by waxing long. I'm tempted to filibuster, to tell you the truth, and talk you all to sleep. But this is just flat wrong. This is not a good project for RT. It's not a good project for the city of Sacramento. And it will cause great disruption to a major thoroughfare in our city and tie up a lane of traffic on the Tower Bridge, which would be much better used with a rubber tire vehicle to connect the cities with a very small amount of ridership that actually wants to get to SVS to go to destinations east on light rail. We need to focus on real projects, the SVS loop, double tracking the Green Line, getting a bridge across the American, and serving a fifth of the population of Sacramento north of the river. This is a distraction. And while I appreciate that there are $50 million outstanding, you don't build something because you've got the money. You build the right project for the organization that will support ridership and support people adopting a different type of lifestyle so that we can get acclimated to public transit. I'm really beside myself that this has come to another vote. A recusal has been forced. There are really insidious politics at play here. And this is, I think, the worst seamy underbelly of local politics that I've ever seen. I urge a no vote on this from my colleagues. I think if you really have the best interest of the RT organization at heart, you can dispense with the platitudes about climate benefits and connecting the cities. Look, we know how many people transit between our two cities. We know that we are in a serious recession because of COVID that will take years to recover. It will probably take 3 years to get back to the ridership that we had on RT before the pandemic hit. This is not the right time to approach this project, and this board already made a decision. And I absolutely resent the idea that we have to revisit it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Harris. Anyone else like to comment before we move to a vote? Director Budge.
Unfortunately, Steve, I am pretty much right there with Jeff. The phrase that staff thinks there was specific feedback. My notes do not reflect any specific feedback, and if you read the minutes of the last meeting, they do not reflect any specific feedback whatsoever. So I really question the reason that we're here. And as I said, the process is backwards. You know, I'm a process person and I don't want the process to get in the way, but in reality, all of the promises that are in this staff report need to be confirmed before we take a vote on this, because it does no good to conceptually approve something when the city of Sacramento has to take action, the city of West Sacramento has to take action, and the city of West Sacramento has to commit to joining RT. And there are several things like that that are just kind of out there in this staff report with absolutely no promise of their happening. The process is upside down. Some of these things should be firm and in place before we vote on this project. And I agree with Jeff. I'm sorry that somebody wants to take a vote before these other commitments are in place to either make this a real project or not. Just the issue of ridership. I know what it's like to have a public transportation thing that doesn't have any riders. Years ago, RT, under different management, did Rancho Cordova a favor and tried to run a bus around to connect businesses with the restaurants, and nobody ever rode the thing. And they actually ran this for like 6 months with nobody but the driver on board, and it was really very sad. If the River Cats played year round, or if there were some other programming of the River Cats Stadium during the year, that might make more sense. But basically, you've got a beautiful public facility that's only used 6 months maybe out of the year. And so it's not even a true destination. It's only a half a destination. And the people who want to ride this little thing will have to take some other conveyance down to the train station before they can even get to it. And it is unlikely that people who are willing to drive all the way into town are going to go over to the train station and take the trolley car out to the River Cats game. They will simply stay on the freeway and park in those giant parking lots that one of the commenters mentioned. It really, it isn't a logic. If it had any logic before, all of that logic has gone out the window with the revision. And obviously I'm a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Budge. Vice Chair Miller.
Thank you, Chair Hansen. First of all, this isn't the first time a reconsidered vote came up. I think Directors Hume and Natoli will remember the project labor agreement for the South Line extension. I don't think it changed the outcome, but there was a reconsideration, and it's legal to do. When this item first came up, I said I'd support this provided that regional transit taxpayers do not pay for this. This is a city of Sacramento and a West Sacramento deal. And now it looks like just a West Sacramento. And we're debating a lot of issues that are really West Sacramento's decision. And I would say to ridership, I think this still, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think FTA still has to approve this based on all the criteria we're talking about. And my other concerns were, of course, cost overruns and with construction and operations, and that we have a contract and that we are reimbursed for costs to date. If those conditions are met, then I could see moving forward in constructing this for West Sacramento. And, West Sacramento is the one taking the gamble, not regional transit, if all these conditions are met. So I'm willing to support this tonight.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Director Hume. Oh, and then Director Natoli. Sorry, Don.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I have no desire to filibuster this item, but I do want to kind of pick up on the last little bit that Director Budge was talking about there. I wasn't necessarily a fan of the original iteration of the streetcar project, and I think I made my thoughts on that known at the time. But it was at least put forward as an economic development tool. It was something unique that served to do some of the things that the mayor extolled in his letter to the board. I think this today, and part of the reason why I voted no the last time this came up, is that it is a streetcar in name only at this point, and the name is just to chase after those dollars that have been committed. What this really is at the beginning of an RT line. It's an MOS into West Sacramento, eventually probably deeper into Yolo County. And so I think that it does the public a disservice when we're essentially doing a bait and switch on their sentiments. And so even some of those public comments that Cindy read into the record still reference the streetcar as though this were that original iteration of the project that came forward. So I'm not against what's being proposed. I'm against the manner in which it's being carried forward. And I think there's a phrase of throwing good money after bad. To spend $50 million just because it's dangled in front of us on a project that could potentially cost somebody, whether it's taxpayers in West Sacramento, taxpayers in the city of Sacramento, or ultimately RT, doesn't make a lot of sense. I think it's time to take a step back. Tying the rail yards and Rayleigh Field and some of the economic development that's going on in West Sacramento makes sense. But I think that has to be looked at in totality and sort of piecemealing what is an idea that's been withering on the vine to continue to do that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Thank you.
Director Natoli.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Hansen. I had a question of staff and then I have some comments. So if I read the resolutions that are included with today's item, there are some differences from what was before us a few weeks ago. And I want to be clear, and maybe Laura or Henry could address this, that what this will require is subsequent actions by both cities, both as to the funding for the studies and work that has to go on pre-construction, which would include obviously the ridership study, as well as other aspects of fully developing the project for going forward with construction. And secondly, that the agreement, the resolution calls out that by no later than the end of this calendar year, that negotiations with the city of West Sacramento regarding either a contractual arrangement or annexation to the district would begin. But so those are distinctions. And then thirdly, I guess, is that this would hold RT harmless, both with the work that's presumed to lead up to, I guess, a full funding agreement to go forward, but also for any construction and operational cost overruns as been portrayed. So are those distinctions that, and if so, it may be minor in scope or not, but if somebody could just tell me what's different. I didn't have my information from the last time right here in front of me, but from the last time around. So I would just want to make sure that I'm noting those correctly.
Laura?
Sure. So the changes specific to the agreement and the action tonight, the work on the project would be on pause until the agreements are fully funded. So that includes the current reimbursement agreement, as well as a subsequent amendment or replacement agreement that would provide for the $151,000 that we are short on the current $2.6 million agreement, plus the projected $560,000 that's required to reach the Small Starts Grant agreement. Those agreements would also fund the two work orders before you tonight with WSP and AECOM. Though, in addition, those would not move forward until the reimbursement agreements are fully funded. And I believe you asked what specific work would need to be done. We will be continuing with developing the ridership forecast. We'll be developing an updated schedule. We would be updating the environmental and design work as well. required for project development.
Okay, and then Laura, but then to follow on this resolution, or the additional language here also calls out for the immediate negotiations with City of West Sacramento regarding annexation or a contractual arrangement. Is that different from what we had before us last time?
Yes, it is. So at the last meeting, we said that we would begin working on an operations and maintenance agreement prior to the award of the Small Starts Grant Agreement. This conditions that operations and maintenance agreement and or annexation to occur prior to the end of the calendar year in order to move forward.
Okay. And the language as it relates to the construction operation, is it the same language that we would not be RT would not be responsible for any overruns, and that the cities would, by agreement, concur with that before we move forward? Is that the same language or different, or just further clarified?
So the current reimbursement agreement, as proposed and as was proposed to you at the last meeting, does hold SAC-RT harmless for any project development cost overruns. This expands that to include construction and operations as well.
Okay.
And it would stipulate that language would be included in any replacement agreement in the current agreement.
So that provides protection all the way through. Before, it was talked about as being something that, I guess, in good faith, folks could potentially come to terms to. But this actually was specified in the resolution as a part of any action that would require subsequent action, obviously, by the cities to agree to that. But that's what we're saying are the terms of what's embedded in the resolutions. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Well, and I would just say that's helpful. And as one who voted against proceeding the last time around, certainly some of those concerns were reiterated by not just by me but by others. And I think that in light of some of the comments I've heard here this evening, certainly as it relates to continued support, obviously by the mayor of the city, and I'm not real clear about the linkage between this and the Strategic Growth Council's linkage to the Dos Rios station. But if that put that in some sort of jeopardy, if I understood that correctly, that's new information, but certainly concerning. But as it relates to reconsideration, obviously it's not usual to do, but it's not it's certainly up to a body to decide whether they want to reconsider. So I supported that earlier this evening, and I think that a number of the concerns that I expressed on behalf of my thoughts about the district going forward with this, I think have been iterated in the resolutions in a much clearer fashion. And to what Director Budge said, she may view it differently, but as it relates to process. But I would just say that those are clearly criteria and elements that if they're not met, then it's not only a pause. Obviously the project would not go forward as it's currently proposed or at all. And so I think RT would, be in the driver's seat, so to speak. And it's incumbent upon the two cities who obviously have, worked on this for, better part of a decade to determine if this project, fits, with the criteria that RT as the entity is being asked to go forward and carry this forward, whether or not, they can live with those terms. So I think it puts us in a much stronger position. That's all I have at this point, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Natoli. Director Schneer, and maybe just one comment. I think that Director Natoli made something clear to me, and I think this is a very strong prenup. Others have talked about how we should have the marriage first and then do the prenup. I think this is a really important thing before us now, and I appreciated those comments, Director Natoli. Director Schneer.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to be brief. I'm not going to go over the points I made last time around, but I just want to say, and the Chair just kind of said that also, there's lots of checks and balances along the way before we get to actually laying track on this. So I feel comfortable with that. With my, both cities have voted on this. Both cities have passed that. I respect certainly what West Sacramento has done. I was part of what was done in Sacramento. So going forward based on that, I think is the right thing to do. And having RT held harmless with the the benefits of the additions that were made from the last time around to this time around, I think make it even a better bet for West Sac. So, I mean, I'm sorry, for RT. So I'm going to be supporting this again. I think it's the right thing to do. And I look forward to us working with FTA in the future to continue to garner money for a lot of the other projects that were discussed here tonight.
Thank you, Director Schneer. Any other comments from the board before we call the roll? Okay, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. This is to approve all resolutions A, B, C, and D, noting that Director Howell has recused herself from this item. Director Budge?
No.
Director Harris?
No.
Director Hume?
All right, no.
Director Jennings?
Yes.
Director Kennedy?
No.
Director Natoli?
Aye.
Director Chenier?
Aye.
Director Cerna?
Aye.
Vice Chair Miller?
Aye.
Chair Hansen?
Aye.
We'll have the results in a moment. Motion carries at 59 votes.
Thank you, everyone. I know that this was painful. I know that this is a complicated project in a lot of ways, but I do commit over the next few months to working with all of you and the other partners to make sure that this goes forward, taking into consideration all the comments that were made. And as the discussions with West Sacramento progress, I would invite any feedback like we talked about with Elk Grove from members, either directly or indirectly, if you want to share with staff or if you want to talk to me. I believe that that's a very important thing to accomplish over the next 12 weeks before the end of the year, 12 to 14 weeks. And hopefully it'll make people feel better if we can accomplish that as well as all the other items. So thanks. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Next item is the General Manager's Report, item 8.1, and I do have one public comment, whether you want that now or later.
Yes, please. Now.
Okay. The public comment is from Mike Birnbaum. In addition to the upcoming SAC-RT board meetings listed in your packet on this item, there are some additional upcoming meetings in which SAC-RT would be a major stakeholder in. Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority meeting on September 16th, the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority meeting on September 25th, Transit Coordinating Committee for SACOG on October 21st, the SACOG Unmet Transit Needs hearing on October 27th, the PCTPA Board of Directors Unmet Transit Needs public hearing on October 28th, the SACOG Unmet Transit Needs hearing on October 28th, another SACOG Unmet Transit Needs hearing on October 29th, and again on November 4th. Assuming that all of the above meetings are remote in nature, not all of the meeting hosts have posted their call-in numbers or their access codes like the rail JPAs have done. Please contact SACOG and PCTPA for specific information on how to join their meeting hearings on this round of unmet transit needs. And that concludes public comment on that item.
Thank you. Is there a presentation from the General Manager?
My connection is not good enough, Mr. Chair, so I'm going to skip my speaking notes. I'm going to pass to Laura to brief board about the innovative clean transit plan. Laura?
Sure, we've got a PowerPoint presentation on this one that staff is going to pull up.
Give us one moment. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty.
So I'll just start with saying that we wanted to share some information with you tonight about the Carb mandated transition plan to a zero emission vehicle fleet by 2040. An innovative clean transit plan is required to be submitted to Carb, but due to COVID, we were offered an extension on that plan, and we plan to bring the draft plan to you at your October meeting. We were going to just give you a quick overview of the guiding principles and the requirements in the plan tonight. Cindy, are you having issues getting it pulled up? Should I just go ahead without it?
Adam's working on it. His internet connection dropped, and he has
Just go ahead.
Okay. I'll just go ahead and talk to you a little bit about it. So the requirements in the current Carb rule require that 25% of purchases for new vehicles, new buses, will be zero emission by 2023. 50% of new vehicles by 2026, and 100% of new vehicles by 2029. Oh, here it is. Okay, you can go ahead and jump to the second slide, Adam, please. So this is the table I was just referencing regarding the purchase requirements, and you can go ahead and jump to slide 3. Okay, so the transition to zero emission vehicles is based upon our normal bus replacement cycle, and expansion buses would be added to the transition plan as funding becomes available for expansion. The transition plan needs to be flexible to take advantage of improved technology and should consider battery electric and hydrogen fuel cell technologies. It's not feasible to expand the fleet in order to operate the same level of service with a zero emission vehicle fleet in order to accommodate the limitations on the battery electric buses. Neither is a reduction in service to address those issues. The range limitations will need to be effectively addressed going forward, minus these two options to either expand our fleet or reduce our service. Go ahead and go to the next slide. In-route charging might be an alternative for some specific service, but it won't be an effective strategy for the larger fleet conversion. So we would select certain routes where in-route charging may be an option, and we can install the infrastructure to do so. We may need to consider smaller light maintenance and dispatch facilities around the service area to address the limitations of these technologies as we're looking at our campus plans going forward. Next slide, please. So this is just an overview of the plan contents as mandated by Carb that need to be included in the ICT plan. You'll see it includes considerations of disadvantaged communities as well as workforce training and cost and funding opportunities. Go to the next slide, please. Our next steps include public and peer review of the draft plan, which should be available within probably the next 10 days. We'll bring it back to you at your October meeting and then submit the final plan to Carb. In support of this effort and a full zero emission vehicle transition plan, we received a $215,000 Caltrans grant. We have approximately $200,000 to finish phase 2 and 3, which includes the final fleet transition plan, a detailed facilities and infrastructure phasing plan, and budget and cost phasing. And it'll also include advisory services for RFP developments and other tasks that might come up. And that grant will be closed out, or will need to be closed out by the spring of 2022. So we anticipate that the full ZEB transition plan will probably be around the winter of 2022 at this time. And that's all I have for you on this, unless you have any questions.
Do any board members have questions for Ms. Ham? Doesn't appear so. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Is there another presentation after this?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I think that concludes then the general manager's report.
That is correct. And next would be any reports or questions that board members have. if any?
Are there any comments from the board? Nope. Okay.
Okay, next I'll announce the closed session items. There are 3. Item 13.1, conference with labor negotiator, organizations ASME, ATU, IBEW, and OE3. Item 13.2, conference with legal counsel on anticipated litigation, 1 case. Item 13.3, public employee appointment pursuant to section 54957, title General Counsel. And at this point in time, Chair, would you like to recess to closed session?
Yes, let's recess the board to closed session. And I believe there's a separate link for that, or are we using this one?
We are using this one.
Okay, so we'll have the staff sign off. And let's make sure that we cease broadcast.